From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day, I am Win Peñano bringing you today's edition of Dateline Malacañang. Here are top Malacañang stories. President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Tuesday welcomed German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier to Malacañang as both leaders reaffirmed their commitment to a rules-based international order and pledged to strengthen cooperation in security, trade, climate action, and maritime affairs. The visit marks the first trip by a German head of state to the Philippines in 63 years. During their bilateral meeting, President Marcos said the Philippines looks forward to expanding cooperation with Germany across a wide range of areas. President Marcos noted that the Philippines and Germany share common views on many of today's major global issues and remain united in addressing challenges that affect international peace and stability.
In our meeting today, Your Excellency, we look forward to discussing with the German delegation the wide array of cooperation between our two countries, both in the bilateral and in the multilateral fields. I am joined here today by the distinguished members of the Cabinet ready to discuss matters of mutual interest. I hope to take this opportunity to talk to our German friends who are very much like-minded on the important issues of our times regarding the various challenges to peace being faced by all of us around the globe.
For his part, President Steinmeier emphasized the strong alignment between Manila and Berlin on key international concerns. President Steinmeier also revealed that his visit was originally scheduled for March but had to be postponed due to tensions in the Middle East and the temporary closure of airspace in parts of the Gulf region.
We are defending the rules-based order. We are defending the United Nations, the international law. So therefore, in our positions, we are very close, although geography is sometimes an hurdle. It's long distances, and I was really depressed because you were visiting Germany in 2024. And I couldn't receive you because I myself was abroad in these days. So therefore, finally we are here. Finally we are here after the previous planned visit in March this year had to be postponed because of the conflict and the blocking of the airspace around the Gulf region. So therefore, thank you so much that you found again some space in your calendar to receive us, and thank you for the hospitality in your wonderful country.
Discussion between the two leaders covered defense cooperation, peace-building efforts, maritime collaboration, trade and investment, climate change, renewable energy, and people-to-people exchanges. The two leaders are likewise exchanged views on regional and international developments. The visit comes as the Philippines continues to deepen cooperation with European partners in promoting maritime security and upholding a rules-based international order in the Indo-Pacific region.
Dateline Malacañang.
In related news, the Philippines and Germany have reaffirmed their commitment to further strengthening cooperation in trade and investment, defense, renewable energy, and other key areas following bilateral talks in Malacañang on Tuesday. In a joint statement after a meeting with German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier, President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. said discussions covered a broad range of issues including peace and development, maritime affairs, climate action, labor, and economic cooperation. President Marcos described Germany as the Philippines' largest trading and investment partner among member states of the European Union.
Our relations with Germany are important not just because our portfolio of cooperation spans a wide array of sectors, but because of these partnerships and the projects have proven to be successful and beneficial to our national development efforts.
The President welcomed Germany's support for the ongoing negotiations on a free trade agreement between the Philippines and the European Union. He also highlighted Germany's growing role as a defense partner, citing its participation as an observer in the annual Balikatan military exercises and its assistance in enhancing the capabilities of the Philippine Coast Guard through the donation of Airbus helicopters and unmanned aerial vehicles. President Marcos likewise thanked Germany for supporting efforts to uphold international law and rules-based order in the South China Sea.
Germany is also an important partner and like-minded country in the Philippines' efforts to promote the rule of law and the rules-based international order.
Are also exchange views on security developments in the Indo-Pacific, Europe, and the Middle East while expressing optimism for stronger cooperation in the years ahead. President Marcos noted that renewable energy presents another area of opportunity, combining Germany's advanced technology with the Philippines' abundant natural resources. He also underscored the importance of people-to-people ties, pointing out that around 45,000 Filipinos now live and work in Germany, many of them in the healthcare, engineering, finance, and information technology sectors. The president also acknowledged Germany's support for technical and vocational education, as well as development programs implemented through the German Society for International Cooperation, or GIZ. For his part, President Steinmeier described the Philippines as a like-minded partner committed to preserving global peace, stability, and a rules-based international order. He stressed the need for closer cooperation amid rising geopolitical tensions and reiterated Germany's support for the Philippine position on South China Sea issues.
Our cooperation is not only marked by international and regional developments, our peoples too continue to grow together. The great and continuously growing number of Philippine skilled workers in Germany plays an important part in that regard. We welcome them with open arms and are very grateful for the important job they are doing.
German leader also expressed support for expanding cooperation on labor migration and skills training, highlighting the valuable contributions of Filipino workers to Germany's economy and society.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Philippines and Germany have signed an aviation partnership that will pave the way for a major aircraft maintenance facility at Clark International Airport in Pampanga. President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. and German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier witnessed the exchange of the lease agreement at Malacañang Palace following their bilateral meeting. The agreement signed by the Bases Conversion and Development Authority, Luzon International Premier Airport Development Corporation, and Lufthansa Technik Technique Philippines covers a 157,000 square meter site within Clark Airport Complex. The area will host a maintenance, repair, and overhaul facility for aircraft, supporting Clark's ambition to become a major aviation and aerospace hub in Southeast Asia. Lufthansa Technique Philippines earlier announced plans to invest about $400 million in the project, which will be capable of servicing large aircraft, including the Airbus A380. Germany remains the Philippines' largest trade and investment partner within the European Union. Steinmeier's visit also highlights the two countries' commitment to strengthening ties, marking the first visit by a German president to the Philippines since 1963.
Dateline Malacañang.
President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has expressed openness to a future Visiting Forces Agreement or VFA-like arrangement with Germany as Manila and Berlin continue to strengthen defense and security cooperation. Speaking during a joint press conference with visiting German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier at Malacañang on Tuesday, President Marcos said the Philippines would be receptive to such an agreement should both countries determine that it is necessary in the future. The president noted that cooperation between the Philippines and Germany continues to expand, particularly in defense and security matters. He added that the current geopolitical climate underscores the importance of building stronger partnerships and alliances.
Well, why not? We are long. We probably in reality we are still a long way off of that. But we are actually increasing our engagements in especially in the military and in the defense and the security areas, and perhaps when the time comes, certainly that would be something that the Philippines would be very, very open to. I cannot see any disadvantage to that.
President Marcos said no country can address global challenges alone and that broader cooperation among like-minded nations contributes to stability and security. The president also emphasized the value of multilateral cooperation in addressing evolving regional and global concerns.
With the volatility that is happening in the geopolitical world right now, the best path to stability is to have partnerships, is to have a wide base of alliances. If the VFA if we came to an agreement and we feel that it is time to have it, the Philippines would certainly entertain that possibility very warmly.
Remarks came during the state visit of President Steinmeier to the first by a German head of state to the Philippines in 63 years. During their meeting, the two leaders discussed defense cooperation, maritime security, trade and investment, renewable energy, climate action, and regional security developments. The Philippines currently maintains visiting forces arrangements with several defense partners, including the United States, Australia, Japan, New Zealand, France, and Canada. These agreements provide the legal framework governing the temporary presence and activities of foreign military personnel in the country. Under the 1987 Philippine Constitution, foreign troops may not establish permanent military bases or conduct military activities in the Philippines without a treaty duly concurred in by the Senate.
Dateline Malacañang.
President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Tuesday reaffirmed that the fight against corruption remains one of the top priorities of his administration, saying public funds lost to graft directly deprive Filipinos of essential services and development opportunities. Speaking during a joint press conference with visiting German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier in Malacañang, President Marcos said corruption weakens the government's ability to deliver programs and services effectively.
The fight against corruption in the Philippines?
Oh, as serious as it can get. Every government, not every government, every entity, every business entity, every government feels the corrosive influence of corruption. This completely changes the way government can work. And it limits governments to such an extent that many of the things that are never mind that are wished for, but that are necessary for as services to the people, are not government is unable to deliver.
The president said his administration has undertaken sweeping reforms to dismantle what he described as long-standing abusive practices within parts of government. President Marcos added that authorities are continuing to investigate irregularities in government systems and hold accountable those responsible.
There was no way to do it easily or painlessly. We had to turn everything on its head and to make very, very clear that these abusive practices that we had to suffer from before will no longer be allowed. We have to discover that so we don't go and do it again and make the same mistakes. Those who are found to be part of this system of corruption, that they will be punished and that they will provide restitution to the Filipino people.
Audit of flood control projects following concerns over billions of pesos in spending on infrastructure projects alleged to have failed in preventing flooding in several areas. Several government agencies have since filed administrative and criminal complaints against individuals linked to allegedly anomalous projects, while hundreds of projects remain under review. President Marcos emphasized that corruption involving public funds is especially unacceptable because it directly affects ordinary citizens.
What they have taken is not my money or your money or a company's money. It's the money from the people. And that is the worst sin of all, as far as I'm concerned. It's the worst form of corruption, as far as I'm concerned.
The president said ensuring accountability is essential to restoring public trust and improving government services, stressing that anti-corruption efforts remain central to his administration's agenda.
Dateline Malacañang.
President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Tuesday welcomed the ceasefire agreement between the United States and Iran, expressing hope that it would pave the way for lasting peace and stability amid heightened tensions in the Middle East. Speaking during a joint press conference with German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier at Malacañang, President Marcos described the agreement as a positive step toward ending hostilities and restoring normalcy in global trade and energy markets.
We heard the news a couple of days past that there has been an agreement that has been arrived at least on the basis of that agreement, that the Strait of Hormuz, the fighting immediately will stop, the blockade of the United States will be withdrawn, and the Strait of Hormuz will be open, and the freedom of navigation will once more return to the Strait of Hormuz. That is what we have been hoping for since the day after the war started.
The president said countries such as the Philippines and Germany have felt the effects of the conflict, particularly through disruptions in global oil supply and rising fuel prices. He noted that prolonged instability places additional pressure on economies that depend heavily on imported petroleum products and international trade. Despite the positive development, President Marcos said the government remains cautious and will continue to monitor the situation closely until the agreement is fully implemented. The president added that he remains hopeful the ceasefire will hold, allowing economies to recover and governments to focus on supporting their citizens without the uncertainty caused by volatile oil oil prices.
Therefore, we await with bated breath the actual finalization of that agreement. It is some of the best news that we could hope for, if indeed it comes to fruition. That is what we are looking forward to. But we still will feel, because of the enormity of the problem of the instability that this war has caused, it's inevitable that it will take some time for us to adjust back to what will be the new normal. So we, of course, are always cautiously optimistic. We have unfortunately heard these proclamations before, and they have not come true.
For his part, President Steinmeier emphasized the importance of reopening the Strait of Hormuz, citing its impact on global energy supplies, food prices, and international commerce.
We both therefore hope that we will see an actual agreement, not only a signing of a document, but that we will see an ending of the fighting and an end to the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz.
Leaders expressed hope that the agreement will be fully realized and contribute to greater stability not only in the Middle East but across the global economy.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Philippines and Germany reaffirmed their commitment to stronger bilateral relations on Tuesday as both nations celebrated more than 70 years of diplomatic ties during a state luncheon hosted by President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. for German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier at Malacañang Palace. In his toast remarks, President Marcos highlighted Germany's role as a key development partner and underscored the importance of expanding cooperation and friendship between the two countries.
For over 7 decades of bilateral relations, Germany has become a very important partner of the Philippines to various aspects of cooperation that impact our national development. It is now my great pleasure to honor to extend to you today the famous Filipino hospitality as we celebrate our rich and vibrant culture through this luncheon.
Marcos also expressed optimism that the partnership between Manila and Berlin would continue to grow in the years ahead, benefiting both nations and their peoples. For his part, President Steinmeier thanked the Philippines for the warm welcome and reflected on the long-standing historical and cultural ties between the two countries. He cited the town of Wilhelmsfeld in Germany, where Philippine national hero Jose Rizal stayed while completing his novel Noli Me Tangere. The German leader also emphasized the shared democratic values that unite the Philippines and Germany.
In 1946, the Philippines finally gained independence. A nation that has fought so long for its freedom will not forget what freedom is worth. We in Germany likewise know that democracy, rule of law, and human rights cannot be taken for granted. Defending these values remains our common task. They are the foundation of our partnership. We liaise closely on security policy when it comes to safeguarding freedom of navigation, defending the rules-based international order, and protecting human rights and the rule of law.
President Steinmeier also noted the growing economic partnership between the two countries, with hundreds of German companies operating in the Philippines and thousands of Filipinos contributing to various sectors in Germany. He likewise highlighted the increasing number of German tourists visiting the Philippines and praised the country's rich cultural and natural heritage. The German president also expressed solidarity with communities affected by the recent earthquake in Mindanao and reaffirmed support for cooperation in addressing climate change.
Many Germans, including me, were deeply saddened by the images of the severe earthquake in the south of their country. Our thoughts are with all those who lost relatives or their livelihoods to this natural disaster. In addition, as the United States, the Philippines is particularly severely affected by typhoons and rising sea levels. Our common fight against climate change remains a priority for both our countries.
Leaders expressed confidence that the enduring friendship between the Philippines and Germany will continue to deepen through stronger cooperation in trade, security, climate action, and people-to-people exchanges.
Dateline Malacañang.
In other news, the national government is speeding up the release of emergency assistance and recovery funds for communities affected by the magnitude 7.8 earthquake that struck Mindanao on June 8. Executive Secretary Ralph Recto said President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has directed government agencies to prioritize relief operations, restoration of basic services, and rehabilitation efforts in affected areas. Recto said more than 34 billion pesos remains available under the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Fund, with nearly 12 billion pesos ready for immediate deployment through various agencies' quick response funds. As of June 15, the government had released 362 million pesos in assistance to local governments, while the Office of the President provided an additional 278 million pesos to 19 local government units across Mindanao. Meanwhile, the Department of Social Welfare and Development has distributed over 125,000 family food packs as recovery efforts continue in the quake-hit region.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Department of Budget and Management, or DBM, has released an initial 362 million pesos to help rebuild public facilities damaged by the magnitude 7.8 earthquake that struck parts of Mindanao on June 8. The funding sourced from the Local Government Support Fund follows the directive of President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. to provide immediate assistance to affected communities. According to the DBM, 100 million pesos was allocated to General Santos City, 140 million pesos to Sarangani Province, and 122 million pesos to South Cotabato for the repair and rehabilitation of roads, bridges, hospitals, and multi-purpose buildings damaged by the quake. Budget Secretary Kim Robert De Leon said the release forms part of the government's broader disaster recovery strategy and reflects the administration's commitment to delivering aid without delay. The DBM added that additional funds remain available through national disaster and quick response programs to support ongoing relief and reconstruction efforts.
Dateline Malacañang.
President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has praised the reforms implemented by the Department of Justice, or DOJ, since 2022, saying these efforts have strengthened the administration of justice and upheld the rule of law under the Bagong Pilipinas program. The President made the remarks during the oath-taking ceremony of 56 newly appointed and promoted prosecutors of the Department of Justice National Prosecution Service at Malacañang Palace. Among those sworn in were Senior Deputy State Prosecutor Diana Perez, Regional Prosecutor Prima Jesusa Mangelen of Soxargen, Baguio City Prosecutor Alfred Ganaban, and Tagbilaran City Prosecutor Julius Cesar. President Marcos highlighted key reforms, including the creation of new prosecution offices nationwide, the expansion of prosecutor positions from more than 2,700 to over 3,400 and an improvement in the prosecution success rate to more than 90%. He also cited updated DOJ rules that raise the standard of proof required before filing criminal cases in court. Justice Secretary Frederick Vida joined the ceremony, attended by DOJ officials and newly indicted prosecutors.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang says sanctions imposed by China against Defense Secretary Gilberto Teodoro Jr. will not affect his mandate or the performance of his duties. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said Teodoro is simply carrying out his responsibilities in accordance with Philippine laws, the Constitution, and the policies of the Marcos administration. Castro emphasized that while China has its own laws and policies, the Philippines likewise follows its own legal framework in governing public officials. China recently barred Teodoro and his family from entering mainland China, Hong Kong, and Macau, and prohibited Chinese individuals and organizations from conducting business with them. The Department of Foreign Affairs described the move as an unfriendly act that could further complicate relations between Manila and Beijing. For his part, Teodoro said the sanctions are a common response against individuals who speak out against what he described as China's deception and coercive actions in the West Philippine Sea.
Dateline Malacañang.
President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. departed for Kazan late Tuesday to lead the Philippine delegation at the ASEAN-Russia Commemorative Summit and hold bilateral talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The presidential aircraft carrying President Marcos and his delegation left Villamor Air Base in Pasay City shortly before midnight. In his departure statement, the president said the summit marks the 35th anniversary of ASEAN-Russia relations and is particularly significant as it will be his first visit to Russia and coincides with the 50th anniversary of diplomatic relations between Manila and Moscow.
As chair of ASEAN, the Philippines is committed to ensuring that this commemorative summit produces substantive and forward-looking outcomes that deepen ASEAN's strategic partnership with Russia and contribute in concrete terms to regional peace, stability, and shared prosperity.
The president said ASEAN leaders and President Putin are expected to review decades of cooperation and identify new areas for engagement in the years ahead. Discussions during the summit are expected to focus on peace and security, trade and investment, food and energy security, science and technology, digital transformation, education, tourism, and people-to-people exchanges. On the sidelines of the gathering, President Marcos is also scheduled to hold bilateral talks with President Putin.
Beyond marking our golden anniversary of diplomatic relations, which were formally established on the 2nd of June 1976, our discussions will focus on concrete areas of mutual interest, particularly energy and food security.
Comes at a time when many countries continue to face concerns over energy prices and supply stability amid ongoing geopolitical tensions. President Marcos reiterated the Philippines' commitment to ASEAN unity and regional cooperation under the country's chairmanship of the regional bloc. Meanwhile, First Lady Liza Araneta Marcos described the trip as brief but significant, noting that the president will spend only about 38 hours in Russia despite a combined travel time of roughly 26 hours. She said every hour of the visit is important as discussions will focus on issues affecting Filipino families, including food security, energy supply, and fuel prices. The ASEAN-Russia Commemorative Summit will be held on June 17 and 18, with participating leaders expected to adopt key documents outlining future cooperation between ASEAN and Russia.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang on Tuesday dismissed concerns over a possible lack of quorum in the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte, saying the issue is premature as the Senate continues to function with its active members. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said there is no reason at this time to worry about the matter, noting that 22 senators remain active and continue to attend Senate sessions. Castro expressed hope that all senators will be present when needed for the impeachment proceedings. She also said it would be appropriate for Duterte to personally testify and explain her side should the impeachment trial move forward, adding that the Vice President is in the best position to answer the allegations against her and clear her name. The Senate Impeachment Court is set to hold a pre-trial conference on June 18, where senators are expected to discuss key issues, evidence, witnesses, and the schedule for trial proceedings.
Dateline Malacañang.
In other news, a total of 465 Filipinos repatriated from Kuwait arrived safely in Manila on Tuesday as the government continued its efforts to assist overseas Filipino workers affected by tensions in parts of the Middle East. The returning OFWs arrived at Ninoy Aquino International Airport aboard a Cebu Pacific flight and were welcomed by the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration or OWA, the Department of Migrant Workers, the Department of Foreign Affairs, and other government agencies. OWA Administrator Patricia Yvonne Kaunan said the whole-of-government approach has helped ensure faster coordination and more effective assistance for overseas Filipino workers during times of crisis. The repatriates received food assistance, financial aid, and transportation support, while those bound for provinces were provided temporary accommodation and onward travel arrangements. Kaunan said nearly 11,000 OFWs and their families have been brought home since the regional crisis began, including more than 6,000 repatriated through OWA-funded emergency flights. She added that the government remains ready to assist Filipinos abroad while hoping for lasting peace and stability in the region.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Department of Migrant Workers or DMW has assured the family of slain overseas Filipino worker Rona Jean Hervoso of continued assistance following the mistaken repatriation of another worker's remains in her place. Migrant Workers Secretary Hans Leo Cacdac personally visited Hervoso's family in Sibalom, Antique, conveying the condolences of President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. and apologizing for the incident. Hervoso was among two Filipinas fatally shot in Lebanon on April 15. Authorities identified the suspect as the child of one of the victim's employers. The remains initially brought to Antique on June 12 were later discovered to belong to fellow victim Hanilit Zamoras of Zamboanga del Norte. Cacdac assured the family that the government will continue to provide support and pursue justice for Hervoso. The DMW and the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration have also committed to assist the family until Hervoso is properly laid to rest, while Philippine labor officials in Lebanon coordinate with authorities to ensure accountability in the case.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Department of Social Welfare and Development or DSWD has intensified its relief operations for communities affected by the magnitude 7.8 earthquake in southern Mindanao as it continues the large-scale delivery of aid across several regions. Based on the latest Disaster Response Operations Management, Information and Communications or DROMIC report, the DSWD has already provided 192.8 million pesos worth of humanitarian assistance to more than 339,000 families, or over 1.4 million individuals across regions 9, 11, 12, and the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. DSWD Assistant Secretary Irene Dumlao said the ongoing operations follow the directive of President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. to ensure that no affected family is left behind. She said prepositioned relief goods allowed the agency to immediately deploy assistance, with over 219,000 family food packs already distributed to displaced residents. The DSWD added that relief operations are being supported by replenishment of warehouses, transport assistance from the Philippine Air Force and Coast Guard, and continued deployment of mobile kitchens and response teams in affected areas. The agency also assured that over 5 billion pesos in relief resources remain available for ongoing disaster response and recovery efforts.
Dateline Malacañang.
Global Filipinos from 30 countries have gathered in Pasay City for the 2026 Filipino Diaspora Summit, aimed at strengthening engagement between overseas Filipinos and the Philippines. Commission on Filipinos Overseas Chairperson Dante Ang II said the government is deepening its engagement with non-resident Filipinos, or NRFs, who make up around 60% of the estimated 10.8 million overseas Filipinos. He said NRFs include permanent migrants, dual citizens, professionals, entrepreneurs, and descendants of Filipinos living abroad. Ang emphasized that beyond remittances, overseas Filipino play a key role in national development by sharing expertise, building global networks, and promoting Filipino culture and identity worldwide. Around 350 participants, including government officials and private sector leaders, attended the summit, which also marks the 46th anniversary of the Commission on Filipinos Overseas. The event highlights efforts to position overseas Filipinos as strategic partners in shaping the country's cultural, economic, and social development.
Dateline Malacañang.
And that concludes today's edition of Dateline Malacañang. For Radyo Pilipinas World Service, I am Win Peñano. Good day.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.